Welcome to Pod Studio, level up your fluency from trending topics. Today we are going to talk about DeepSeek, China's disruptive AI challenge.
For the longest time, when you thought about cutting edge AI, especially those really powerful language models, it just felt like this super exclusive club. We all saw the headlines, right? Billions being spent by just a handful of tech giants. It kind of felt like if you didn't have those deep pockets, you just couldn't play. But what if that whole idea just got completely flipped on its head? Today, we're doing a deep dive into DeepSeek. They're a Chinese AI firm, and they didn't just nudge the status quo, they pretty much blew it out of the water. Their rise has been, frankly, astonishing. And the way they're doing things, their innovations are causing some serious ripples, maybe even waves, across the whole AI world. So yeah, today we're going to unpack exactly how DeepSeek managed this, what makes their tech tick differently, and crucially, what this massive shift means for all of us, really. Okay, so let's talk about this disruption because honestly, it hit the industry like a bolt from the blue. January 20th, 2025, DeepSeek releases R1, their large language model, and the numbers, they're just, development costs, under $6 million.
Yeah, under $6 million. Which, when you compare it, it's just a tiny fraction of what the big U.S. companies are spending on their main models.
Exactly, a fraction. And it wasn't just cheap. They released R1 open source, free to use.
Which is a direct challenge, no question. It goes right against the grain of the proprietary walled garden approach we see so often.
And the impact was immediate, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Almost instantly, the DeepSeek AI Assistant app, the chatbot for R1, it just rocketed up the Apple App Store charts. It wasn't just popular. It actually overtook OpenAI's ChatGPT app within days.
Wow. Outranking ChatGPT.
Yeah. And that kind of explosion in popularity, well, that naturally set off alarm bells in the financial markets. Big time.
Right. Let's talk about that market reaction. What was the immediate takeaway for investors that caused such a panic?
Panic is a good word for it. The market basically had a collective heart attack.
Yeah.
So January 27th, 2025, just a week after R1 dropped, big sell-off. The NASDAQ composite fell, was it 3.4% right at the open?
3.4%, that's significant.
It is. And NVIDIA, they took a massive hit, down 17%. They lost something like $600 billion in market cap.
$600 billion, just like that.
Just like that. And it wasn't just NVIDIA. Microsoft, Meta, Oracle, Broadcom, they all saw significant drops too. Investors were scrambling, fundamentally reassessing AI valuations.
So it wasn't just a blip. It was a serious reevaluation, questioning the whole business model. Who holds the power in AI?
Precisely. It shook the foundations a bit.
Okay, so before we go deeper, maybe we should just clarify. Who exactly is DeepSeek? Where did they come from?
Right, good question. So DeepSeek is an AI development firm. They're based in Hangzhou, China, founded back in May 2023 by Liang Wenfeng. He's a Zhejiang University graduate. Interestingly, Liang Wenfeng also co-founded Highflyer, which is a quantitative hedge fund based in China. And Highflyer actually owns DeepSeek.
Ah, okay, so there's a hedge fund connection.
Yes, but DeepSeek operates as an independent AI research lab under that umbrella. Their main goal, right from the get-go, has been developing open-source LLMs. They actually put out their first model in November 2023, and they've been iterating like really fast ever since. But yeah, it was definitely the R1 reasoning model in January 2025 that put them on the global map.
So this relatively new player, DeepSeek, comes out of China, owned by a hedge fund, and essentially takes on giants like OpenAI head-to-head. Let's really dig into the comparison, because their approaches seem, worlds apart. OpenAI is known for broad AI capabilities, pushing the envelope with GPT, now the O1 models.
Right, focusing on general AI progress. DeepSeek, though, seems much more laser-focused. Efficient, open-source models, that's their game.
And that focus really shows up in the costs and how open they are, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You mentioned the cost for R1 under $6 million. Now, contrast that with OpenAI's O1 model. Estimates put that cost in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
Hundreds of millions versus less than $6. That gap is just enormous.
It's a fundamental difference. And then there's the openness. OpenAI's approach is often called, limited open source. DeepSeek is aiming for mostly open source, really emphasizing free use.
That completely changes the economics, surely.
It does. It democratizes access in a big way.
But how? How do they manage such a massive cost reduction? Especially with all the talk about U.S. export restrictions on advanced chips going to China.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Or maybe the $6 million question here.
Yeah.
A lot of it comes down to really clever training techniques. But it's not just the initial development. Look at the ongoing costs, like API pricing. DeepSeek is incredibly aggressive there too.
Give us an example.
Okay, so their DeepSeek v3.1 model, it's priced at 0.56 per million tokens for input and $1.68 for output.
Okay, and how does that compare?
Well, compare that to OpenAI's GPT-5. That's $1.25 for input and a whopping $10 for output per million tokens.
$10 versus $1.68 for output. That's a huge difference for anyone building on top of these models.
Exactly. The cost advantage for developers, for businesses, it's massive.
So the cost savings are clear. But let's get into the how. What are these groundbreaking training innovations they're using? Because achieving this with less time, fewer accelerators, lower cost, that's the really fascinating part.
It really is. They've published some research outlining their techniques, and it's quite impressive. One major thing is their approach to reinforcement learning. They've focused it specifically on reasoning tasks, using that trial and error learning guided by rewards, but honing it for complex thought processes.
Okay, reinforcement learning for reasoning. What else?
Then there's reward engineering. This is really interesting. They designed a rule-based reward system. Think of it like giving the AI a very specific instruction manual for learning, rather than just general feedback. And surprisingly, they found this rule-based system actually outperforms the neural reward models that are more commonly used.
So a more structured reward system works better for them. That's counterintuitive almost.
It seems so, yeah. And they didn't stop there. They also used distillation.
Distillation? Like boiling down the knowledge.
Pretty much. It's an efficient way to transfer knowledge and capabilities from larger, more complex models into smaller, leaner ones. They've managed to compress powerful abilities into models as small as 1.5 billion parameters.
Wow. High performance in a compact package.
Exactly. And another concept they talk about is the emergent behavior network.
Okay, what's that?
This is the idea that complex reasoning skills can actually emerge, sort of develop naturally during reinforcement learning, without needing to be explicitly programmed step by step. The model kind of figures out sophisticated thinking on its own.
That's fascinating, like organic intelligence developing.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And most recently, with their v3.1 model released in August 2025, they introduced hybrid architecture training.
Hybrid? Meaning what?
It means a single model is trained to operate in two modes. One for really fast responses, fast inference, and another for deeper, more complex reasoning. They even created new ways to interact with it, including special thinking tokens and think that let you sort of guide how much reasoning the model applies. It gives you more control over its thought process.
Think tokens. That's a unique level of control. And the speed of their development is just relentless, isn't it?
It really is. From DeepSeek Coder in late 2023, then DeepSeek LLM V2, Coder V2, V3, then the R1 Game Changer in Jan 25.
And they updated R1 just a few months later, right?
Yep. R1 0528 in May 25. Boosted the reasoning depth, significantly average of 23,000 tokens per question, up from 12,000. And now V3.1, this hybrid model, they are not sitting still.
It's an incredible pace, shows real dedication. But, you know, this kind of massive disruption, this much power emerging so quickly, it doesn't happen in a vacuum, does it? It inevitably raises flags, causes concern.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can't have something this impactful, this potentially game-changing, without setting off alarms.
Yeah.
Especially in the geopolitical context.
So let's talk about those alarms. We
Okay.
mentioned the market reaction earlier, the NASDAQ dip, that huge NVIDIA loss. What are the core concerns this DeepSeek phenomenon has triggered, particularly in the U.S.?
Right. Beyond the immediate market shock, there are really four main areas of concern that keep coming up regarding the U.S. tech sector and, well, the government, too. First, obviously, is the cost disruption. We talked about it, R1 costing less than $6 million to develop. That figure alone puts immense pressure on U.S. companies that have sunk billions into their models. It changes the whole ROI calculation.
It makes the barrier to entry seem suddenly much lower.
Exactly. Second, and this is a really significant point, is the technical achievement, despite restrictions. The U.S. has export controls on the most advanced AI chips going to China. Yet DeepSeek built a leading-edge model. It proved that cutting-edge AI development is possible, even without access to the absolute latest U.S. hardware. That raises big questions about how effective those restrictions really are.
That's a huge point. It undermines a key aspect of tech policy. What's the third concern?
The business model threat. This ties back to the cost and the open source nature.
Yeah.
DeepSeek is largely free and open. That's a direct challenge to the subscription-based proprietary models that dominate the U.S. AI landscape.
If you can get something comparable for free.
Why pay?
Yeah.
It forces a rethink of how you actually make money in this space long term.
Okay. And the fourth?
That's the geopolitical concern, plain and simple. DeepSeek is a Chinese company achieving parity, or near parity, in a critical technology area. It challenges U.S. technological leadership directly. You heard tech investor Mark Andreessen call it AI's Sputnik moment. That comparison to the Soviet space race breakthrough really captures the feeling of suddenly facing unexpected, serious competition. It's about dominance.
A Sputnik moment. That really frames it starkly. Okay, so we have this picture of incredible innovation, cost disruption, geopolitical tremors. But there's another side to this coin, isn't there? The darker side, maybe. Bans, security issues?
Yes, you're absolutely right to bring that up. It hasn't been all smooth sailing for DeepSeek. There's a growing list of countries and major organizations that have actually banned its use.
Who's on that list?
Quite extensive. Australian government agencies, India's central government, Italy, NASA, South Korea's industry ministry, Taiwan government agencies, the state government of Texas, the U.S. Congress, the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Pentagon.
Wow, that's a lot of significant players. What are the driving reasons behind these bans? It sounds serious.
It is. The core concerns usually boil down to ethics, privacy, and security. Specifically, the fact that user data is stored in China. Given the relationship between tech companies and the government there's a major worry about potential data leaks or access by the Chinese government. Data sovereignty is a huge issue.
And it's not just data leaks, is it? There was mention of a Chinese worldview.
Right. That's a more subtle but still significant concern. The idea is that because the model was trained primarily on data reflecting perspectives prevalent in China, it might embed a certain bias or worldview aligned with the government's stance on various issues.
Okay, I see. And Europe is wrestling with this too.
Definitely. Italy banned DeepSeek back in January 2025 over data privacy. Then in June 2025, Germany's data protection commissioner asked Apple and Google to think about blocking the app in their German stores. The worry there is about transferring user data to China without the protections required by EU laws like GDPR and the EU AI Act. It's a regulatory minefield.
So government and regulatory hurdles are significant, but DeepSeek has also faced more direct problems, like cyber attacks.
Yes. Ironically, on the very same day its app hit #1 in the App Store, January 27, 2025, DeepSeek reported being hit by large-scale malicious attacks. It forced them to temporarily pause new user signups. They managed to keep the service running for existing users and fixed it quickly by the 28th. They didn't specify the attack type, but most people assumed it was some kind of DDoS attack aimed at their API and chat platform.
Talk about bad timing. Or maybe deliberate timing.
Quite possibly. And then, just 2 days after that, on January 29th, more trouble. A cloud security company, Wiz Research, found a pretty basic cybersecurity error.
What kind of error?
They called it a rookie mistake. Essentially, a back-end database was left publicly accessible online. It was leaking sensitive stuff, chat histories, back-end data logs, even API keys and operational details.
Ouch, that's not good.
Not good at all. DeepSeek took it offline fast once Wiz told them, but it's not clear how long that data was exposed. And around the same time, someone managed to jailbreak the model to reveal its entire system prompt, basically, its core instructions.
So a mix of external attacks and internal security slip-ups.
Seems that way, yes.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. We've covered a lot of ground. What does this incredible, complex story of DeepSeek actually mean for us? For you, the listener, the developer, just people trying to navigate this tech world, it really feels like a paradox, doesn't it? On one side, DeepSeek is this amazing force. Low-cost, open-source AI, making powerful technology accessible like never before. It's sparking innovation, challenging the big players.
Absolutely. It shows that cutting-edge AI doesn't have to cost billions or be locked away. It's genuinely empowering for smaller teams, researchers, startups. It's changing the development landscape.
But then there's the other side.
Right. The flip side is that its sudden rise, its origins, and these incidents throw these huge global concerns into sharp relief. Data sovereignty, who controls your data, privacy, is it protected, national security, what are the risks, geopolitical influence. These are massive questions.
They really are. And they're not abstract questions either. This global AI race with players like DeepSeek shaking things up directly impacts the technology you interact with, the data you create every day, and the kind of technological future we're building.
It forces us all really to think hard about the trade-offs. Innovation versus security, openness versus control, accessibility versus trust.
So where does that leave us? What's the final thought we should be mulling over after this deep dive?
I think the big question DeepSeek forces us to confront is this. In this era of super-fast AI progress, tangled up with all these geopolitical tensions, can a model that's built on being low-cost and open source truly gain global trust and thrive? Can it overcome these deep-seated worries about data security, privacy, and national influence? What's the real price of free and open AI when it comes down to governance and simply trusting the technology? How will all these factors shape what comes next in AI and how we relate to it?